It's the Take Back America tour here, folks. Very, very simple. I discussed current situation in the United States yesterday with investigative journalist George Webb, and also attorney from Ottawa, Canadian attorney Michael Swinwood, who is suing the World Health Organization, and also the Pope in Rome, and also the monarchy in England. Let me very simply state this, folks. You want to take America back, you see the country dissolving. It's being dismembered. There's no way around that. There are various attacks on the American people coming at various angles, whether it's racially or socially. The education system has long been dumbed down. Charlotte Eisenbit spoke about that in the 80s with her book, The Dumbing Down of America. She's a former Reagan advisor for the Department of Education. The financial system in the United States has been monopolized in large part by the Rockefeller Foundation and current day by presumed shareholder Bill Gates, perhaps most likely Warren Buffett, a number of other individuals. But it's not American. It's not the Americans that are the enemy. The enemy are the European links that control the banking system in the United States. It's called the central bank. There's a post-World War II, there's a central bank that was set up in China. The Chinese are beholden to a central bank established in 1945, again, post-World War II. The Russians have a central bank. Again, this is what I spoke about yesterday with George Webb, investigative journalist, and Canadian attorney Michael Swinwood. These are Roman empirical governing roots that were adopted in the establishment of the United States in 1776. They aided in the write-up and drafting and publishing of the Constitution. 1783 was it? But officially in 1913, the passing of the Federal Reserve Act by Woodrow Wilson, which he later lamented, the United States has been under a monopolistic control by European central bankers. Now, most notably, the Bank of England, which resides in the City of London, which is a sovereign nation unto the UK, whereas the Queen or King, whoever's presiding over the people in that monarchy, in that system, reports to the bank, and that is the City of London, which is a Roman banking mechanism that reports to Rome. Simply add up some of these different pillars, they all make sense. So that's who's behind the World Health Organization. This isn't an American creation. That's who's behind the United Nations. This isn't an American creation. What I stress for Americans, if you care about your country, if you want to preserve the freedoms that have been granted to you through the Constitution, which is free speech, which is free press, which is freedom of religion, then you must destroy the bank that is controlling your government. And you must see past party divide. You must get past Republican. You must get past Democrat. You must get past Libertarian. You must get past Green Party. You must look at and behold and strengthen and defend your Constitution. That is the only way to get through it. In layman's terms, in plain sight, in 1776, the United States had no Republican Party. They had no Democratic Party. The Democratic Party wasn't formed until, I believe it was the 1820s or 1830s. Andrew Jackson being the only president, a member of the Democratic Party, he being the only president of 46, who left office without a debt. So those that the United States and its federal government owe money to The federal government is in a $29 trillion debt. Who does that governing body owe its money to? And that would be, in my opinion, the shareholders of the Federal Reserve. It's very, very, very easy to follow that money trail. And once you do follow that money trail, and then you start demanding answers, like an audit of the Federal Reserve, then you get to the crux of who is behind controlling the government, and who is behind investing in different movements to destroy the fabric of the American people, to pit the Americans against one another, make the blacks upset with the whites, make the Asians upset with the blacks or the whites or whatever it may be. You create this kind of disruption in this chaotic atmosphere within the United States, and then you can move in your UN troops and dominate the country. That's a possibility. You have to look at all the various possibilities that could be happening here. But the fact of the matter is this: the banking system that controls the federal government, which is in a $29 trillion debt, is controlling all facets of American life. And it is an international group that feed into the central bankers in Switzerland. Now, again, talking about George Webb yesterday, I joined George Webb's show. He's an investigator, and we spoke at on guest Michael Swinwood from Canada. He was airing from Peru, and this is what he is peeling. You peel back the layers, and you discover who is behind the World Health Organization, who is behind the United Nations, who is behind the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, which all of the central banks that dot the globe feed into. Okay, and in short, what you must begin to look at is what's the system we came from. Okay, so if you're European, or if you're of African descent and you arrived to the American continent, you're either from Africa or Europe, likely, or you're from Asia. But the American system came from where? It came from Europe. It came from Europe. The American system didn't come from Africa. It didn't come from Asia. The American system came from what was formerly known as the Roman Empire. That's just the way it is. That's the history of it. But the Roman Empire came from where? Well, it came from Rome, didn't it? The Romans built their empire based off of Greek philosophies and teachings, and the Greeks had built their form of governance off of the Egyptians. This is the way it is. Athens is bankrupt. It's a non-significant city, really, today. Athens and Cairo are sitting in the same position. There's great historical value within both of those cities, but they're of no economic significance, really, outside of tourists. What is and maintains a stronghold and is a significant player economically, globally speaking, is Rome. So then you look at Rome, and you look at, well, what made Rome Rome? Well, very, very simplistically, Rome built an empire off of combining church and state, making them one. So if you can control people's concept and theology and belief in God, and then you dictate how other people adhere to God and practice their worship of God, and you dictate that, then that's called a monopoly over religion, unless you insert Rome, right? So you're controlling not only church and people's belief in God and whatever God is, but then you also control people's way of life. And so simplistically, you then combine taxes and tithings to the same unit, and that would be the Godhead on this planet, which would be the Pope. So therefore, that is why Michael Swinwood, the attorney out of Canada, is suing the Pope along with the World Health Organization, because he is accusing them of being behind this COVID-19 mess around the world, this pandemic that has a 98% survival rate, but has the majority of the population, inhabitants of the human species on the planet wearing masks and openly receiving injections, which World Health Organization is calling vaccines. So if you add up some of these things, they make great sense, and I urge you to do just that. And so, what I'm going to do before I go, because I'm going to make this short here, is I'm going to suggest three books for reading right now, so that this makes more sense to you, and you can share this information. Again, the pillars of the American greatness. All right, it has nothing to do with race, right? In fact, the African Americans built this country up on their back. Unfortunately, those that tarried in the field were not paid. That's just unfortunate, right? But those peoples that worked so hard for those plantation owners, that's what made economically that built this country up. Well, there's no denying that. But this isn't about race. This isn't about ethnicity. This is about money, and this is about who's controlling the money. Because again, the United States is in a $29 trillion debt. The United States federal government is in a $29 trillion debt. Are they in debt to the tax-paying citizens? No, absolutely not. They're in debt to those that they have borrowed money from. And what I argue is that those debtors are hidden behind this mask known as the Federal Reserve Central Bank. That is where you can get at the crux of who this federal government owes its money to. So again, I laid out the map there. I laid this out, this blueprint out of this Roman Empire. The Roman Empire still exists because Rome still exists, doesn't it? Rome is still a major economic player globally. It still exists. Rome exists today, and it's a very powerful organization called the Vatican. So three books to look into right now. The first is called The Federal Reserve Conspiracy. By Anthony Sutton, he taught at Stanford University. The Federal Reserve Conspiracy. I'm not talking about a theory. I'm talking about an actual conspiracy to overcome and overtake and control a government. And you do that by owning its banking system. The second is a book by James McBride and also Ed Reichen. James is an American, Ed is a Canadian, and they wrote a great compilation called Divine Providence. All right, and it goes into this exact thing: how you build an empire over subjugating people's belief in God, and then you dictate how they believe and what that God is to them. That's tyranny, folks. That's tyranny. It's a human. It is a human right, isn't it? You agree? It's a human right for people to believe in God and worship that God and how they choose, as long as they do it peacefully. All right, this is religion is a theology. You can't dictate that over other people. So here's the third book that I exhort you to read. It's written by Eric John Phelps, and it's called Vatican Assassins. And you can find all those books at iantrottier.com. That's INTROTTIER.com. Just click on the research tab, and you'll find those publications. They're free. They're available for you. Please pass them to your friends. And you can check out my other episodes at anchor.fm. I've had some great guests on, and I urge you to please contact me and write me as I'm telling you. This is the downfall of America. It is up to you to save it. Simple as that. Thanks for listening to me. I'm ending the stream.